Namaste. Today I'm going to read Volume 1, Book 2, Rudra Samhita, Part 1, Chapter 14, Directions for the Worship of Shiva in the Shiva Puran. Om Vakratuna Mahakaya Surya Koti Samaprabha Nirvignam Ekadantaya. Hari Tat Sat. The sages said, O disciple of Vyasa, O fortunate one, please explain to us authoritatively the fruits gained by Shiva for the different worships with different flowers. Sutta said, O sages, Saunaka and others, please listen attentively. I shall lovingly explain to you the mode of offering flowers, which is the same as Brahma explained to Narada at his request. Brahma said, a person desirous of wealth shall worship Lord Shiva with lotuses, bailva leaves, petals of lotuses, or with sankha flowers. O Brahmin, if a devotee worships Shiva with 100 flowers, his sins shall be wiped off and the devotee shall become rich. 20 full lotuses constitute one prastha, measure. 1,000 bailva leaves constitute half a prastha. Petals of lotuses, 1,000 in number, constitute half a prastha. 10 tanka weight constitutes one pala, and 16 palas make one prastha. Flowers for worship shall be weighed in the balance according to this calculation. The worship thus duly performed shall accord all cherished desires. If the devotee worships with no specific desires, he will become Shiva himself. O lordly sages, a person desirous of obtaining a kingdom shall appropriate Lord Shiva with the worship of 100 million earthen lingas. Lord Shiva confers a kingdom on the devotee certainly. He shall use Shivalinga for worship. Flowers shall be used. Unsplit rice grains mixed with sandal paste shall be used. The ceremonial ablution shall be performed. The mantra used shall be pleasing. Bailva leaves are very excellent. Or he shall use loose petals, or full lotuses, or sankha flowers according to ancient authorities. The worship is divine and accords pleasures and achievement of desires both here and hereafter. He shall not omit other items such as incense, lamps, food offerings, arghya, arartika, waving of lights, pradakshina, namaskara, kashamapana, craving forgiveness, and visarjana, the ritualistic dismissal. At the end, he shall feed other devotees. A person who yearns for important positions shall worship half the former number. A person desiring release from prison shall worship 100,000 lingas of Shiva. A person afflicted by ailments shall worship half that number. A person desiring a daughter shall worship half that number. A person desirous of learning shall worship half that number. A person desirous of eloquence shall worship Shiva with ghee. In order to drive out enemies, the number of worship is the same as before. For exterminating enemies, worship is for 100,000 times, and for enchantment, worship is half that number. For the conquest of vassal kings, worship for 10 million times is recommended. Or keeping vassal kings under influence, the same for 10,000 times is recommended. For achieving glory with plenty of vehicles, worship for 1,000 times shall be performed. A person desiring salvation shall worship Shiva 5 crores of times with deep devotion. A person seeking knowledge shall worship Shiva, the benefactor of the world, 10 million times. A person desiring Shiva's vision shall worship him 5 million times. The Mrityunjaya mantra shall be repeated 500,000 times when Shiva shall be visible to the devotee and fulfill his desires. If a person repeats the mantra 100,000 times and begins a second installment, he will be lifted to a higher caste. When he completes the third 100,000 times, all his worldly desires will be fulfilled. In the fourth laksha, he will be able to see the Lord. When the 50 laksha is completed, the Lord will confer on him all benefits. When the same mantra is repeated 1,000,000 times, the merit is tremendous. A person desirous of liberation shall worship him with dharmas. O best of sages, the number everywhere is 100,000 times. A person desirous of long life shall worship him with durva grass. A person desirous of sons shall worship him with datura flowers. A datura plant with red stem is specially auspicious for worship. A worshipper using Agastya flowers will earn great fame. Worldly pleasures and salvation will be secured by a person who worships with tulasi. Great valor can be secured by worshipping with arka or kubja kalhara flowers. The worship with japa flowers, China rose, brings about the death of enemies. Karavira flowers drive away all ailments. By worshipping with Bhanduka flowers, the devotee will get ornaments. With Jati flowers, he will acquire good vehicles. With Atasi flowers, he will attain favor of Vishnu. With Sami leaves, he will secure salvation. With Malika flowers, he will secure an auspicious woman. With the splendid Utica flowers, he will not be deprived of a house. With Karnikara flowers, he will secure plenty of garments. With Nirgundi flowers, his mind becomes pure in the world. 100,000 bilva leaves used for worship will secure the fulfillment of all desires. Use of lovely flowers in the form of garlands increases happiness and wealth. Use of seasonal flowers for worship yields liberation. There is no doubt in this. The flowers of Rajika brings about the death of enemies. 100,000 Rajika flowers shall be used for the worship of Shiva. The benefit accruing will be very great. Excepting the Champaka and the Ketaka, there is no flower which does not appeal to Shiva. All other flowers can be used for worshipping him. Now, O excellent one, listen to the quantity and the benefit accruing from grains and pulses in their use for worshipping Shiva. Heaping up rice grains by way of worship causes prosperity. 6.5 prastha and 2 palas of rice grains constitute 100,000 in number of grains. These shall be used in their unsplit form for the worship of Shiva. Worship of Rudra shall be performed at first, and a fine cloth shall be spread over the lingas. The rice grains shall be put over the cloth at the time of worship. At the end of worship, a coconut fruit shall be placed with scents and flowers, etc., and fumigated with incense. The devotee shall attain the benefit of worship. Silver coins and black gram shall be given as fee to the priests, as much as for 2 Prajapatya ceremonies. If the devotee cannot afford it, he shall give according to his capacity. Thereafter, 12 Brahmins shall be fed. The whole of this then constitutes the Laksa Puja, complete in its detail and with requisite mantras. The mantras shall be repeated 108 times. That is the rule. 100,000 ginjali seeds used for worship destroy even great sins. Even palas of ginjali seeds constitute 100,000 in number. The mode of worship is the same as before. Those who desire beneficent results shall perform the puja. Brahmins shall be fed. Hence, only those who can afford shall perform this. Certainly, all miseries due to great sins perish instantaneously. Performance of the worship of Shiva with 100,000 barley grains is highly efficacious. Efficacious. 8.5 prastas and 2 palas of barley grains constitute 100,000 in number according to ancient calculation. The worship with barley grains, the sages say, increases heavenly pleasures. Brahmins desiring the benefit shall perform the rite of Prajapatya. The worship of Shiva with wheat grains is highly praiseworthy. If 100,000 grains are used for worship, the devotee shall be blessed with a number of children. Half a drona of wheat will constitute 100,000 in number of grains. The mode of worship is as before. Shiva accords happiness on being worshipped with green grams. 7 prastas and 2 palas to 7.5 prastas of green grams constitute 100,000 in number. 11 Brahmins shall be fed. Even the great Atman, the presiding deity of Dharma, is worshipped with Priyangu, long peppercorns. The devotee will be blessed with happiness. His virtue, wealth, and love will flourish. A prasta of these corns constitutes 100,000 in number according to ancient authorities. 12 Brahmins shall be fed. Worship with Rajika, small mustard of Shiva, shall bring about the death of enemies. 12 palas of Sarasapa, big mustard, constitute 100,000 in number. Worshipping with them also brings about the death of enemies. The Shiva Linga shall be decorated with the leaves of Adhaki and then worshipped. A cow along with necessary adjuncts shall be given in charity, and a bull shall also be given. Worship with pepper is also conducive to the destruction of enemies. The Shiva Linga shall be decorated with the leaves of Adhaki, flowers, and worshipped. This worship is conducive to different kinds of happiness and benefits. O best among sages, the measurement and number of grains and pulses have been explained to you by me. O Lord of sages, now listen to the calculation of 100,000 In the case of flowers, a prastha of Sankha flowers constitutes 100,000, says Vyasa, who shows the exact measurement and calculation. 11 prasthas of Jati and Utika flowers constitute 100,000 in number in each. 5.5 prasthas of Rajika flowers also constitute so many. 20 prasthas of Malika flowers constitute 100,000. While so many flowers of Ginjali plant measure a little less than a prastha. Karavira flowers measure 3 times that. Scholars say that the flowers of Nirgundi too measure likewise. In Karnikara and Sirisa flowers too, the same mode of calculation holds good. 10 prasthas of Bandhujiva flowers constitute 100,000. The devotee shall perform the worship of Shiva with different flowers after considering these modes of calculation for the fulfillment of desires if he has any, or for the sake of salvation if he has no desire. Now I shall explain the benefit of great potentiality accruing from Dhara Puja, a mere listening to which is conducive to great welfare. After performing the regular worship of Shiva with great devotion in accordance with prescribed rules, the devotees shall pour water in a continuous stream. This Dhara worship is very efficacious in delirium due to fever. At that time, Sata Rudriya mantra, Rudre ka dasa mantra, Rudra japya mantra, Purusa sukta, Sadanga mantra, Mahamrityunjaya mantra, Gayatri. Names ending with Nama and beginning with Pranava or Agama mantra shall be repeated. The Dhara worship is very excellent in regard to flourishing series of pleasures. Different types of auspicious materials of worship shall be added to the water. If Dhara worship is performed with ghee continuously, while 1,000 mantras are repeated, the family will undoubtedly flourish. Thus, the worship of Shiva shall be performed with the mantras mentioned by me. Sages have held that Brahmins shall be fed and Prajapatya rite shall be performed. Milk without sugar is usually taken for the dhara. If the devotee is deficient in intellect and yearns for the same, sugar shall be added to milk for the sake of dhara. His intellect will become as keen as that of Brahaspati. The dhara shall be continued till 10,000 mantras are completely repeated. If there is any crack or laceration in the body without an apparent cause, if there is any uncommon increase of love or misery anywhere, or if there be very frequent quarrels in the house, miseries will perish when dhara worship is performed. Oil dhara shall be performed on Shivalinga for harassing enemies. Success in the enterprise is certain. If scented oil is used, worldly pleasures will be increased. If mustard oil is used, enemies will be exterminated undoubtedly. If honey is used, the devotee will become Kubera, god of wealth. The dhara of sugarcane juice is conducive to all pleasures. The dhara of Ganga water yields worldly pleasures and salvation. In all these dharas, Mrityunjaya mantra shall be muttered 10,000 times. 11 Brahmins shall be fed. O lordly saint, what I have been asked, I have now explained to you completely. This will be fruitful in the world and will contribute to the achievement of all desires. I shall now tell you, as I have heard, the benefit accruing from the due worship of Shiva in the company of Skanda and Uma. He will enjoy in this world all kinds of auspicious pleasures with sons and grandsons. Then he will go to the region of Shiva that is conducive to all happiness. He will enjoy happy sports with Shiva's attendants, move about in aerial chariots that can go anywhere they pleased, and that shine like 10 million suns, and will be served by Rudra's maidens with sons and instrumental music till the time of dissolution. Then he will attain perfect knowledge and ultimately salvation. Footnotes. 204. On the Sata Rudriya concept of Shiva, this is pertaining to it's 206. 1 second. Okay, that's all it says on 204. 206. This mantra is often used for warding off diseases and prolonging life. This is the Mahamrityunjay mantra. Here ends today's reading of the Shiv Puran. Prabhu Prananatam Vibhum Veshwanatam Jagannatanatam Sanatapacham. Om Tuya Mata Chavitatma Om Hari Om Tat Sat.